Welcome to the Brave Podcast. I'm Connie Jacob. I'm your host, and I want to start this week off with a funny story. I had a really adventurous week doing two talks in 1 week, and one talk was at the North Edmonton Teachers Convention. Some of you might have been there. And I have been preparing for this for months because I was so excited. And I had written down 1 p.m. in my calendar and then just forgot about it. So I'm meandering around Edmonton. I'm doing this, I'm doing that in the morning. And then I go back, I have a nice shower, and I had just finished blow drying my hair. Now, I don't know about you, but when I blow dry my hair, it goes poof, right? I mean, you might be thinking, wow, Connie, right now, if you're watching this on YouTube, you might be thinking your hair is poof. This is nothing, friends. When it's first blow dried, it is poof. So I am like sitting there with my massive poof, and I get this ding on my phone. It's a text from the organizer. And she's like, you know, you're on at 11 a.m., right? And it's 10:45. Okay. I'm not even dressed. I'm 4 minutes away from the actual convention center, and my hair is poof. Oh my goodness. I put on some like Moroccan oil. I like, just like prayed over my hair. It was insane. Anyways, it turned out to be an amazing talk, meeting some amazing people. Hilarious, not in the moment, but now it's so hilarious. I share that story with you, not just to share a funny story, but today I really want to dive into the whole idea of how do you manage you when things go crazy around you. And so for me, in that moment, I had a choice. I could either make that entire experience about me, which would have then dysregulated my mind and scattered me everywhere and had me showing up thinking about, first of all, how do I look, which was probably ridiculous. How am I coming across? I would be very me focused. But how many of you know that when you're a leader, you're a teacher, you're a parent, me focused is not really something that we can do. It's not really our novelty. It's not our privilege to be a me centered person. We need to be a you centered person, a them centered person. So I had to walk myself through those three questions I ask you all the time. What's my resting emotional state? What does that sound like as a sentence? And what's the behaviors I'm noticing? I had to walk myself through those questions in order to show up and give it my all and not focus on how I was feeling, how flustered I was, what I looked like, but to be able to serve people really well. And so hopefully, if you were there and you're listening to this, I hope that you can say in your heart, oh, I didn't notice that at all. And if you could, well, I'm sorry. You probably noticed my hair is what you noticed. But here's the thing in life, when you're a teacher, when you're a parent, when you're leading a team, things go wrong all the time. There are curveballs being thrown at you all the time. Kids' behaviors, employees' behaviors, your spouse's behavior doesn't always go as planned. It's not always on your terms and on your clock and on what you expect. And you get these things thrown at you. And how do we respond? And so I wanted to share a little bit about that. Something that I shared last week also in another talk that I did to a group of peers and mentors. I tell you, the hardest people to speak to is not strangers for me. The hardest people to speak to are your peers and your mentors. Oh my goodness, I was shaken. But one of the things that I shared with them was this concept of I'm not trying to change your behavior. I'm trying to connect with your heart. Now, I'm not talking about me saying that to them. I'm talking about the concept I was bringing to the table was, are we so fixated on changing people's behaviors? I get people coming to my sessions at teachers conventions, and I get schools asking me and leadership teams asking me, will you come in so that my team or our students will begin to be able to fill in the blank? Like we have an outcome that we want, and that outcome is often attached to a desired behavior that we're looking for. Just give me your top three ways to help me manage that kid's anxiety, or to get that oppositional kid to do what I want them to do, or to get my employees to start actually communicating and to be more of a team. We all have these desired outcomes, but here's the thing. They don't work. Strategies just for those things do not work. It's because we've lost this art of being human. We've lost the art of being able to understand that people are not numbers to manage. Students are not just a group of kids to control. Even our own homes, it's not a place where we micromanage, and if things go off the rails, so do I on the inside, and then mom's losing her mind. This is not what we were born for. We were born to have a beautiful human experience. And as our story collides with other people's stories, and I encourage you to listen to last week to find out where your story has come from. Last week on the podcast, we talk about the emotional suitcase that we all carry with us. And when my story collides with your story, I mean, there might be some friction there. And then, of course, you add the curveballs of life, and we've got to be able to lead through that. And so, this concept of I'm not trying to change your behavior does a lot of good things. So, number one, what it does is it takes down that amygdala response, the amygdala in the back of your brain where we're all reactive, where we're not really thinking about collaboration, we're not thinking about cooperation, we're thinking about protection, we're thinking about self protection, we're thinking about, I don't know if I can trust you. I mean, that thing just goes into overdrive, that part of your brain. When somebody is seeking to control you, we all put up walls. We all go into the back of our brains. This is something that happens to a human when somebody else tries to control them. And so when I say I'm not trying to change your behavior, I don't even need to say that to somebody. I can just have the vibe, the attitude of, hey, I'm not trying to get you to do whatever I want you to do right now, even though we need them to do what we want them to do right now. But control has a vibe to it, and it never goes well. One of the things that I'm always teaching on is how to work with oppositional kids. But I'll tell you what, control rubs everyone the wrong way, not just the oppositional thinkers. It rubs everyone. Just, I mean, for a moment, just think about your spouse trying to control you and see how that goes over. Yeah, exactly. Nobody likes to be controlled. And so when we can put aside our need for our outcome to happen, which might seem counterintuitive if you're a parent or if you're a leader or a teacher trying and you need to actually get people to do what you need them to do, there is a desired outcome. You're not wrong for wanting to have that. You're not wrong for wanting your employees to perform and do well. You're not wrong for not wanting your students to just throw their papers everywhere and run all over the place. You're not wrong for wanting to have a home that feels like it's got a rhythm to it and that there's respect and love. These things aren't wrong. But often how we go about it as adults can be a little ridiculous. And it's gotten to the point now, at least in my realm of work, where I'm helping teachers and parents and leaders come up with ideas of how do we actually get people to do what we want them to do? How do we bring the hurting closer? Well, we need to convince people that we don't have an agenda other than their best interest. Now, maybe if you're honest, you're like, I actually totally have an agenda and I really don't care about their best interest. That might need some attention. If that is there inside of you, you might need to look at that only because it's not going to get you very far. That authoritative type of leader, parent, teacher only gets people so far. It'll really work on the compliant ones, like me, people who want to please you, people who want to make sure that they're doing a good job. It's going to work on them. But the thinkers, the creative ones, the ones who actually will take whatever you want them to do and actually take it to a whole other level, it's not going to work on them. Those kids that are falling through the cracks, those kids that don't just listen all the time, the anxious ones, they're going to spiral deeper into further anxiety. You will see absenteeism, whether it's school absenteeism, kids staying in their room all day. people just not doing what you're asking them to do, that will only rise. So if it's working for you, go for it. Keep on going. But I can guarantee you after 25 years, I can tell you that it's probably not your best option. Having people's best interest in mind is honestly where that heart comes from of, I'm not trying to change your behavior. I'm trying to connect with your heart. Now, as a teacher of a grade 8 student, you might not want to say that. I'm just trying to connect with your heart. They will look at you like you are the most loony person on the planet. But that's the attitude that we bring forward. That, remember that attunement. A lot of times you'll hear me talk about attunement. It is the essence in which we're showing up. We don't make people feel safe around us with our words because words are empty. Action is everything. Body language speaks louder than words, and actions do too. And so I'm talking about an attunement that gives the attitude that I care more about connecting with you and seeing you thrive than I do about you doing what I want you to do. Again, seems counterintuitive, but I can tell you as a mom who has been through this, and now with two boys, I can say that I always go a lot further when I lay down my agenda to do whatever it takes to make sure that I'm reaching them where they are at. And that's the difference. That's the difference. And I don't know if you could even think of someone, a leader, someone who, a mentor, someone who's been in your life, a parent who has had that kind of a heart with you, someone who decided to walk alongside of you and really bring forth the things that were inside of you, that potential. How did that feel? Maybe you've never had anybody do that for you. And no wonder we find ourselves just wanting to control environments, because if no one has ever shown us a different way, then this is all we know. And as Maya Angelou says, we don't do better unless we know better. Now, how do we know better? And so, what I want to do right now is I want to actually give you some really practical ways that you can put this into practice. How do you actually give off that vibe of, I'm not trying to change your behavior. I'm just trying to connect with your heart. So number one, I would say, is keep showing up like that consistently. That is going to be probably the biggest one. When you show up consistently over time, it builds trust. Now, this might take the entire school year. This might take a year in your home, like it did for me. If you've read my book, Bring Them Closer, you'll find out. Took me a year of consistently showing up the same to build trust with my son. It might take you a long time. In fact, it probably will. So be consistent. Don't make this a new strategy that everyone's looking at. Oh, what's the new strategy that they're applying with me now? It's like, let this be a part of who you are. The second thing I would say is always be asking yourself, why is this important to me? Why is that kid getting to class important to me? Sometimes we might find ourselves with our own agenda. I know that this probably isn't you, but for me, with my son, I wanted our issues to end. I wanted behaviors to stop for him, of course, but also so that I could feel better about myself as a mom. I was so tired of feeling like a failure every single day, and I just wanted something to go well so I could be like, oh, I'm not a failure as a mother. That's not good. I had to really check that. I had to check myself because I was coming across that way. Sometimes when things would get thrown at me, I would overreact because underneath all of those episodes was this feeling of shame telling me, see, you are a horrible mother. If you were a better mother, things would be going much better. If he had a different mom, he'd be doing so much better. Think about that. And so that would determine how I behaved, which was very much like, we've got to control this thing. I am now dictating to you how things are going to be. Instead of responding out of love, I was responding out of fear. And that's a big difference. And so for you, what you might want to do is really just check your heart. why is this so important to you? Is it truly for their best interest, or is it to also appease something inside of yourself that might be feeling a little bit of that shame? And if so, the great news is remember, you're a human having a human experience, and there is nothing more human than experiencing shame and the response to shame, wanting to control the atmosphere, wanting to control the environment. So you're having a fantastic human experience. All you need to do is just acknowledge it and see. It's like, okay, I'm going to focus myself on their best interest. Watch what happens. And the third one I would say is curiosity. Curiosity has become my best friend. I get curious about the way I respond to certain situations. I've really learned to drop the judgment of myself and to get curious. I wonder why I'm responding that way, which has then turned into empathy for myself. And I don't know if anyone's read the book, What Happened to You by Bruce Perry, but he talks about the way to get back to our prefrontal cortex, that's right here, where we problem solve, where we're reasonable, where we're creative. He says the only way to get from the back of your limbic system, where you're reactive, to a creative brain is through empathy. And in this case, not empathy for others, but empathy for yourself. Empathy to get curious about how come I'm responding that way. Oh, I see it now. And now it's judgment free and it gets me back to a creative brain. The same thing works when I have empathy for somebody else. But the more empathy I can have for myself, the more I can give it to that student. The more I can give it to my child, the more I can give it to my relationships, my coworkers. I need to do it for myself first. And that's the step we're often missing. And this is why here's the top 3 ways to get whatever results you're looking for. Doesn't work because we haven't even learned how to be in ourselves. We haven't attuned in to be able to make that kind of attunement out. If you're curious with yourself, you'll be curious with that student when they don't show up to school. You'll be curious about your spouse when they respond a certain way. You'll get curious about your child when they react the way they do. You'll get curious about people instead of judgmental. And that is going to be key. We don't realize the judgments that we have on ourselves, which is huge because we are the hardest on ourselves. The more judgmental I am on myself, the more judgmental I am as a person. And we don't make that connection because we judge ourselves by our intentions, not our actions. But we don't realize that the vibe we're giving off is judgment. We're judging others because we judge ourselves so much. And so curiosity has been a real game changer for me. I'm just going to get curious. I'm going to lose the judgment and I'm just going to get curious. And so those 3 things are honestly what has really helped me with this whole idea of I'm not trying to change your behavior. I'm just trying to connect with you. And connecting with you is more important right now to me than being right, getting you to do what I want you to do, because I want you to win. I want me to win. I want us to feel connected, and I don't want to leave anyone behind. So I hope this helps you in your interpersonal relationships, no matter what context you're coming from. And friends, when I say keep being brave, this is what I'm talking about. Be brave to face yourself in relationships and see what happens. So keep being brave.